So with all tech, there's a tension between whether it's going to create more freedom, like you're describing, or whether it's going to be used for control, and I think that's kind of the fight or the battle that we're in.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
This is an audio recording of an X Space courtesy of thecoinrepublic.com, the go-to place where you can keep up to date with what's happening in the crypto space. October, UK time. Welcome to this Crypto Pulse, courtesy of the Coin Republic. I am your host, Crypto Rich. You can find me on YouTube, ODYSEE, Rumble, 3Speak, Podbean, and Brighteon. Now, this podcast, or this X Space, is hosted by the Coin Republic, thecoinrepublic.com, and today we have a very, very special guest, someone who's been on my channel before, but not enough times, and if he could request to become a speaker. Now, before I introduce him, I just want to let you know that nothing that I say on this podcast, on this X Space, or on any other video or audio that I ever do should be considered as financial advice. You're responsible for any financial decisions that you make, and please do your own due diligence beforehand. And very quickly, while we're waiting for Ben O'Hanlon from Iohk, which is one of the foundations connected to Cardano. And Cardano is number 9 by CoinMarketCap. Its current price is, having a look here on CoinGecko, 65 cents. So Ben, if you could request to become a speaker, and then we can begin, because you are one of the team at Cardano. Well, one of the team at Iohk, which is one of the team at Cardano. Now, I haven't covered Cardano much on my channels. I have in the past held Cardano and then not held it, and perhaps I should have just held it and just held it and held it, because often with great cryptocurrency projects, hodling turns out to be the best strategy. You don't have to worry about prices going up and going down and catching the dips and all of that, right? Just hodl. And had I hodled, oh dear, it would look, my Cardano holdings would look very, very different. When it listed on CoinGecko on October the 18th, 2017, one ADA, which is the ticker symbol for Cardano, was worth 2.68 cents. It has been as high as just under $3, I think. And that was in September, $2.86 is the nearest I can get. September 2021. And like I said earlier, it's at 65 cents. Now, Ben, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Really, really appreciate it. You and I, we go back a long way through our connection with another crypto project. I think back in 2018 or something.
Yeah, Komodo, Metaverse Coin, and those privacy projects.
Yes, yeah. You are the angel that introduced me to Pirate Chain, with which I'm still connected, by the way. So thank you very much for that. And then you went to work for Iohk. Do you want to say a little bit about yourself and Iohk and how that's connected to Cardano?
Sure. Okay. So my background was probably market research communities before I got into blockchain, and I worked my way up from Bounties and Komodo, where I knew you, to I'm director of community and DevRel at Iohk now. So that's been my journey. I joined Cardano in 2019. I worked at the Cardano Foundation, which is a not-for-profit, for a year and a half. And then I worked at IO, which is a research and engineering company. In fact, that's who we were. We were a research and engineering company, and we were building Cardano. And Cardano is known for liquid stake, so your ADA isn't locked. And there's a whiteboard video that's very famous now that Charles Hoskinson shared, and it was really about changing the world. It was sort of 3 things. It was banking the unbanked, and it was about peer-reviewed academic research. So it's about being the adult in the room and building right. And there were business opportunities for validators or block producers. They're called stake pool operators in Cardano. And it was those 3 things that started It actually started in Osaka in Japan, and then the Western community grew. So this is back to 2016, 2017, and more recently, smart contracts came online. I think it was 2021. So dApps and DeFi have been building. TVL is always interesting because the ADA isn't locked, right? So you'll see TVL. It won't. I think something like 19 billion if you actually counted the delegated stake, so stake that's been deliberately delegated to an SPO or something like that. But more recently,
But and hold on a second. Hold on a second. Thank you so much for that. And because this isn't a video, you may not see me raising my hand, so you have to allow me to interrupt you. And of course, feel free to interrupt me. When you say TVL, I know you mean total value locked. But for anybody who's listening or watching this on my channels when it goes on my channels, why is that important?
so people in Web3 or blockchain are going to consider TVL to be a commitment, like the value or has been locked away, right? So it's kind of a commitment metric. Whereas but with ADA, it's different. It's actually not locked. You can delegate, but you always have custody, and you can move that ADA anytime you want. And that's relevant because, as I was going to say, more recently we have on-chain governance. So we had a constitution at the end of 2024. I went to Nairobi, and there was a big constitution event in Buenos Aires. So the point about delegation is you would delegate to your SPO, which is the block producer or the validator, and you would get rewards in the protocol. But you would also, with that same ADA, delegate to your DREP, who is like effectively your politician, or the person that you want voting in on-chain governance. And so, the past year has been the first year of that on-chain governance, and it's been very interesting. There's governance actions. The Treasury's been activated. I mean, when I joined Cardano in 2019, we've built up the SPO network to something like 2,000 SPOs, I think, have registered. Maybe it's around 1,000 that are producing blocks. But the key thing there is that the transactions from that network have self-funded a treasury of 1.7 billion, right? And that's what's been unlocked in 2025 with on-chain governance. And I think that there's a potential or a promise that a lot of projects make to the community. But Charles and Cardano have handed governance to the community. The decisions now about like what proposal get funded or parameter decisions are made by the community, and that's done through DREPs. Although SPOs can vote as well on specific governance actions. So Cardano now has on-chain governance, which I think is really innovative. And I swear I saw a tweet somewhere about Solana was talking about doing a constitution of their own. But that's been the journey, and part of that journey for IO is we were a research and engineering organization that was building Cardano. But as you're going to hand over governance and you're going to become a player in the ecosystem rather than like the player. You have to think about who you're going to be and what your role is. And so Cardano is kind of evolving, Iohk is evolving into like a venture studio. So solving problems and building on the ecosystem. So the story very simply would be that we've built a network, or we've built an ecosystem, then we've built on the ecosystem, and it's a proof of concept of like open source that then the treasury, the DREPs, voted to continue to fund the research and engineering work that we've been doing for the next year. And I think we're just coming into the next 2026 round a kind of governance. It's Intersect, which is a members-based organization that's kind of a coordination function there, but I think they're looking at like NCL, net change limits, which is a net change limit is like the amount of money in a budget that you would want to spend in a financial year in Cardano. So the community would agree like, okay, we're going to spend, I think in 2025, but somebody might tell me I got it wrong, but it's somewhere in the region of, I think it's 350 million that was agreed. Maybe 290 was spent and 70's left. And there was, stop me at any point, Rich, but yeah, basically there was a discrepancy between financial year and calendar year. But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of where we are now.
All right. Okay. Let me try and sum up, right, or give a broad overview, certainly of how I understand Cardano and what you've said about it. So we've got it's a smart contract platform with the intention of banking the unbanked. It's been set up in such a way that it one, it's stakeable, so people can earn rewards for staking it, but it's also been set up in such a way that it generates its own treasury, and then you said, was it 1.9 billion it's generated since being set up in this way?
1.7.
And then some of those funds are then going to be used for further development and for building on Cardano as determined by the community, because we now have on-chain governance.
Yeah, correct.
Is that,
is
that correct?
That's mostly correct. Yeah.
Okay. And it came from Japan, or it started off growing in Japan in 2016, and has grown and grown and grown, and is now number 9 market cap. Now, my understanding is that it's supposed to be, or it is, a sort of alternative to Ethereum. And it doesn't have the congestion problems, it's faster, it's cheaper to transact with. Would that be correct?
Yeah, Ethereum's an account-based model, whereas Bitcoin, Zcash, Cardano are UTXO. And Cardano has a EUTXO, which is an extended UTXO set. So it's about the ledger and how that works.
Right. Okay. Okay. So I know Bitcoin is UTXO and Ethereum isn't, and it's far too complicated and too technical for me to get in.
It's like account-based is, if I was a bank and I'm going to put some money in your account, I'm just going to type the numbers in, aren't I? Do you see what I mean? It's just going to appear in your account because I've put it there. Whereas UTXO is like coins in your wallet. Like, I'm going to give you £5 and you're going to give me back £2.50. So there's going to be different transactions, unspent transactions. That's what UTXO is, that exist. So that's the difference. It's an account has a balance. When you send the money, the system updates the balance directly, but UTXO is more like cash, where each coin or fraction has like a separate piece of value. So when you spend it, you're destroying the old pieces and creating new ones. So you're getting rid of that £5 note, and now you've got £2 coins and 50p piece. Does that make sense?
Sort of ish. But you know that I work as a social worker, so sometimes when it gets too technical, the room begins to spin, right? But it's a bit like, I don't need to know how a fridge works, and in fact, I don't know how a fridge works. I do know how to use it. So similarly, I know how to use Bitcoin. I know how to use Cardano. And one of the things that's really, really important is use a offline hardware wallet for both of them. That's the safest way of keeping them. Okay, now it has smart contract functionality. It's really fast, or much faster than Ethereum, and do you want? And the transactions are really cheap. Do you want to say how many transactions per second it can do?
I don't know. I mean, I can talk about. There's different layers and ecosystems. Okay, so what I think is interesting coming at it. We can talk about Asia as well after, but I think there's like an illness in independence in Web3 and in blockchains, because these are decentralized environments where there's a lot of innovation happening at the edges, and you'll see them at different layers, like the network protocol layer. There's a governance and treasury layer. There's an infrastructure. There's builder and applications. There's interface, asset access, like wallets would be a good example of that. Data and intelligence layers. There's liquidity layers, even like a narrative layer, right? And I think the illness in independence is like a lot of people are kind of myopic, and they're thinking about, what do I need to do to ship this maximum value extraction? And they don't have a good theory of mind of what's going on in other roles in the ecosystem. But as an example, like the infrastructure layer, which is basically the supply side for demand, that can't succeed without the network protocol working well, right? Or, wallets aren't going to succeed unless there's reasons to hold the value, or to transact, right? So my point is that humans and ecosystems are incredibly interdependent, actually, right? And as a social worker, or I was kind of leaning into the social aspect of it, you'll kind of feel me there. It's like, it's actually how we relate to each other and understand the roles that we have in an ecosystem that's really about whether there's growth or not. Because the illness of independence is that you're going to see fragmentation and silos, and people don't feel heard, right? Whereas if you're interdependent and we understand how we can relate to each other, and what do you need and what do I need, and if we work together, we're both going to get more that we want. That's like fundamentally the business model of an ecosystem, right? You're giving up roles and responsibilities to other people so that the pie is going to be bigger for everybody. There's going to be exponential growth, and you can see that in things like Apple, where they build a protocol and then they have an app store, which is third-party developers, and it's the transactions there that create the exponential value.
Ben, sorry, that's a remarkable way of explaining it. Thank you, because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about our relationship, where we've supported each other and helped each other out from our different roles, and then perhaps here with the Coin Republic hosting this. So then there's a little ecosystem between these three agents, and then using that as a model to transpose on the Cardano ecosystem, that you have all these different elements working together to create a particular ecosystem that grows and expands and fulfills on the Cardano vision.
That's exactly it. And you can't, what you'll often see, it's not top down, right? If you have a top down model in these decentralized environments, you've got a bottleneck in terms of decision making and execs. And sometimes you do want some centralized aspects in these ecosystems, and you do need some leadership. But the point about this is that people, it's a permissionless environment, and people need to be able to self-organize. And so if it's going to be bottom up and people are going to be able to self-organize, they need to be able to like orientate and understand what's going on, and what the common pain points or the common mutual interest is, right, that people should work together on. And I think like that's why you asked me about like whatever the common scalability is, but what I'm thinking about is what's happening in each layer. So like in Cardano, for instance, we have like in the infra layer, we're working on like Hider, which is like elastic capacity, basically. There's like Mithril, we've like other infra stuff that we're working on, like BlockFast. There's Midgard with the Phil. So there's a lot of different stuff being built to solve some of those problems, and that's what Cardano really is. It's a lot of research and engineers that have come together, and they're trying to build something that's really going to guarantee freedom of association, freedom of commerce, freedom of expression in the future, in conjunction with like partner chains. Like Midnight is a partner chain of Cardano, and that's actually a privacy. It's a rational privacy protocol. There's actually a scavenger hunt on at the minute, where you can mine for your browser. So I can send you the link after that if you're interested. That's going live in 12 hours.
That's extraordinary. That's absolutely extraordinary. And just a reminder that we are hosting this. Well, this X Space is going live on Wednesday, the 29th of October. So if you're listening to this on my channels or on the Coin Republic X feed, then those 12 hours may have passed, and you may be able to go to I suppose the Cardano website, cardano.org, would be the best place to begin your research into Cardano. Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier about Japan. You want to say what's going on in Japan? Why Japan, and what is going on in Japan?
Well, I think it's a really good example of where you can historically have like silos or fragmentation, because Cardano started in Japan, but then when I joined Cardano in 2019, the guys really working with state pool operators a lot of the time. And I think I was guilty of two things, or I made two mistakes. And that was, I tended to think of a stake pool operator as a stake pool operator, and an ADA holder as an ADA holder, and maybe like a KOL, a content creator as a content creator. And then when smart contracts came online, I rapidly understood that actually people don't just do one thing. That's why I was using the term role earlier, because people wear different hats. You can be a father, you can be a brother, you can be a son, and the challenges, the information needs, and your ideas of success for each of those roles are different, but people could be multiple different roles at the same time. And the other insight that kind of comes into the Asia thing is that I spent a lot of time thinking about the West, and I didn't have a good grasp on sort of Japan. And I think like something like over 40% of ADA is in Japan, so that's an enormous amount of voting power in the on-chain governance, and the block producers as well. So I just come back from an Asia tour where for 3 weeks we went to Korea for Korean Blockchain Week, and then we went to I think it was Vietnam next, to Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi, and then we went to Singapore, and then we went back to Japan, to Osaka and Tokyo. And in the time I've spent in Japan over the past 2-3 years, I've come to realize it's a really, really interesting country. There's a lot more to Japan than just Tokyo. There's like 6 different key regions anyway, from a Cardano specific point of view. There's communities that have been built around stake pool operator support as well as like wallets. But I definitely think the Cardano's had more, the Western side of Cardano's had more of a Cambrian explosion in that sense. And if you look at some of the reports that are coming out, like the A16 report, and then my experience on the Asia tour is actually, I think Asia activation is really interesting. I'm going to get the metric wrong, but it's something insane, like a third of or 2/3 of all people in Korea hold some kind of digital asset, even though it's like relatively shallow. And then when I went to Vietnam, I was just blown away by like how much motivation and like how young people were, and they were just really about it. And I didn't realize how big the Cardano community there was. It's probably like top 5, could even be like top 3.
Wow.
So Vietnam was just like a mind shift. You know, it really changed how I saw Web3 and the community and Cardano and myself, you know. And I wasn't expecting it. I was just walking up to do some events. So really, really interesting. We met some blockchain universities there. We met the Blockchain Pioneer Club. So a lot of students and like Hydra developers are out there building. And then in terms of like capital or funding, there's the treasury that we talked about, but that tends to be kind of, you know, a certain scale to it. Whereas there's also Catalyst, which is kind of serving that builder application layer, which is an innovation engine, and they've been, you know, putting grants and funding into the community. I think they want to fund 14 now, and they're about to go to fund 15. And some of that money's gone into Vietnam, and you could see like the impact that it had, you know. So yeah, that was great.
That's amazing. And I imagine from that cultural context, a completely different cultural context, completely different organizational and political context, completely different way perhaps of seeing the world, the development is going in all sorts of diverse directions.
It was really interesting because, like regionally, historically, I think there had been a little bit of friction between, say, like factions in Tokyo and then outside of Tokyo. But we went to Tech for Impact, which is, oh my God, there's an insane talk there about cellular intelligence, which I guess is off topic, but it just blew my mind. It was about like how information isn't all coded in DNA. That I could take a cell out of your arm or out of an animal, and it can grow like parts of another animal, like of its own volition. It was nuts. I'll find you the YouTube video if you want it. But when we were at Tech for Impact, I saw the like different regional leaders from different regions shaking hands. There's a real inflection point. So that was really, really interesting to see like where there had been some gaps, you know, people coming together. So the on-chain governance has been really important, I think. You know, the scalability is one part of it, but on-chain governance, I think Cardano is leading. I'm not aware of it. Polkadot has some, Tezos has some, but I think if you look into it, you'll see that what Cardano's got is, and I can send you the links, is the real deal. It's real on-chain governance. The community really does decide, and they can change if I was delegating to you and I didn't like the way that you were voting, I can remove my voting power straight away. So think about like in the UK, you know, how long are we stuck into these cycles, Rich? Is it 4 years? I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. This, we have to be careful, because if we get into the political sphere, it's about crypto, right? It's about crypto. Plus, also in the UK, it's really depressing.
Okay, we'll skip the politics, but whatever side of the fence you're on any issue, imagine if a politician came into power and you're like, oh my God, this is a mistake, and you could move your vote immediately. Like that's what liquid democracy is. It allows people to change where they're voting instantly. So it goes back to why ADA isn't locked. You know, that it's liquid.
Yeah. Now that ties into something which also comes into with the finance aspects of it, the way that it's, you know, all the DeFi funk aspects and applications, which is its privacy. Because there's something that I'm interested in. You know, are there privacy focused applications? Because for voting, it's got to be private. And then for
so Midnight's being built, which is a partner chain, and it has rational privacy. That's the scavenger hunt that I mentioned. So Midnight is going to allow rational privacy, and they're working on that. It's a different team to the people that are building Cardano, but it's a partner chain, so it'll be compatible and support, and there'll be what's the word I'm looking for? You know, beginning with S, where sync. Anyway, I tried to describe when you have a relationship with each other that's beneficial.
Is it symbiotic?
Yes, thank you. Symbiotic. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, symbiotic relationship. Okay. So that's midnight.
So
We're looking forward to that. And then I suppose people again can go to Cardano.org as a beginning to find out what's available in the Cardano ecosystem.
you could go to Tap Tools is really good. You could go to Cardano Cube if you wanted to get involved in governance. Even if you haven't had a history of being in Cardano, there are opportunities to get involved if you've got experience or a lot of energy. So you would want to look up Intersect, which is MBO, so type like Intersect Cardano or something like that. That's a members-based organization. I think it costs like $10 to join for a year, so not that much money to most people. And so you could get involved in that route, and that's like a coordination mechanism. So Intersect doesn't decide what's going to happen, but they help people coordinate. So like they help people kind of come together and reach a consensus or a temperature check on proposals they may want to submit. But Intersect is only one path. You don't necessarily have to go through Intersect to put something on chain. You could just do that yourself because it's permissionless.
Okay.
So
Well,
yeah.
I'm getting the sense that the ecosystem, the Cardano ecosystem, is pretty big. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it's definitely big. I mean, I'm just thinking all the places I've been. We've just been to Asia. The community was huge there. It's huge in Japan, obviously big in America, and also in Europe, and also into Africa. I've been, like Nairobi and Kenya has a good community. Mozambique. There's a lot of African community there as well, and there's RealFi coming, Bitcoin DeFi. Midnight. So I've already told you about Midnight. So because Iohk is a venture studio, there are other projects and protocols that we're working on as well, right? Like Cardano is one of the things that we're doing, but we're doing other things as well.
Right. Okay. Right. Do you want to take us through some of the projects that you think are either innovative or worthy of interest or well established, whatever, that are being built on the Cardano or operating on Cardano?
I don't know. I haven't been doing too much DeFi or DJing because I'm knee deep in OKRs and strategy. What was the last thing I used? Was Bodigo, which is like a prediction market. And I was even thinking about putting up a market for. I was going to do a tweet about like I've been doing keto to lose weight, right? So I was going to open up a market and be like, right, I'm going to put in like whatever 5,000, 10,000 ADA, and I'm going to lose. I'm going to get to whatever it was. So I think I was on 20 stone, which is crazy. And I got down to 18 now, and I wanted to get to 17 by the end of the year. So I was going to open up a market that says like, I'll put my money down and I am going to lose this weight, right? And then I thought that might be fun. So I think prediction markets are really interesting. There are stable coins. USDM is a good example of Cardano stable coin. Although I think there are treasury proposals around, in Korea Blockchain Week, everybody was talking about that, so just like decentralized asset treasuries, and about how money in treasury can be managed. So those are some interesting conversations I listened to, and I think there were some proposals coming into Cardano around that. That's what the typing was. I was just looking up like pool tools to find you the governance page that shows you what proposals are getting put up. That's really interesting.
Okay.
We're also building Lace Wallet, which is really a great wallet to use if you're coming to Cardano. There's going to be a lot happening there, and that's in the App Store. You can download that.
Okay. Well, slight aside, I've been high fat, low carb for about 12 years. So if you want any tips or whatever, you can ping me a message. Right?
I'm batch cooking. I'm batch cooking I've bought a freezer and I'm buying like I'm going to buy a cow. I swear I'm going to buy a cow, and then I'm batch cooking with bones and short ribs and stuff. So then it's about reducing your decision fatigue, right? It's like, can I batch cook all this stuff? So when I come home, all I've got to do is put half of it in a pan with some sprouts or spinach or something, and it's done in like 10 minutes. And like, that's kind of, that's like being kind to yourself, making it really easy to stick to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I do something like that. And we'll have to go back to crypto in a second, which is that I live on a diet of meat, eggs, and raw milk. That's pretty much it. Meat, eggs, and raw milk. But anyway, and fruit, occasional fruit. Anyway, back to Cardano. Maybe perhaps there's scope for there to be somebody to set up some sort of keto Cardano application. as part of the Cardano ecosystem. I have no idea what.
I mean, right now I'd be getting into the scavenger hunt, right, for midnight. If I retweet, I'll retweet a tweet and then you can link it.
Right.
But that's what I'm doing right now. It's open to anybody.
Okay, so say it again. What do you mean by the scavenger hunt on midnight? What is that?
There was an airdrop. There was a Glacier airdrop that went to not just holders of Cardano. I think there's 11 assets. Don't hold me to it, but I think Bitcoin, XRP, and some others. And if you held those at a certain date, you could claim the airdrop, right? So that's. I think there'll be another round, but I'm not. It's outside my wheelhouse, so don't trust me on that. But there may be. And then the second phase is a scavenger hunt now, which is kind of like mining in your browser. And that's going to go on for, I think, a month. Let me have a look. Got it open here. That can be read about on, I think it's midnight .gd. Let me just check.
Yeah, I'm just having a look on scavenger mine midnight.gd.
Yeah.
And I'm looking on Coin Codex, and it says people who held Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, BNB, AVAX, XRP, and BAT. If you held $100 in at least one of those on June the 11th, 2025, then you may qualify for the midnight airdrop.
And Kraken's already announced that they're going to support it too, the Glacier drop. Yeah, so yeah, there's your alpha. Like, get in, mine it. If you got any spare laptops, open those up as well. You know.
Yes. Okay, so you claim the airdrop, and then you can mine it in your browser
for a limited time. So it's not forever, right? Yeah, I've dumped that in your DMs, which the Kraken announcement, if that's of use.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, anything else you want to let us know about Cardano?
I think, the culture in Cardano, what I've gone to, so I went to Berlin, I went to an Ethereum event, and I've been to some Solana events, and I think the community and the culture in Cardano is really different. So it's very often driven by people who are acting for kind of virtuous reasons. They're trying to change the world for the better, which I think is why a lot of people originally got into blockchain. There's great people, lots of opportunity. I didn't answer your question incredibly well about what to do on different dApps and what you can do, but if you go to cardanocube.com, it has a whole ecosystem map of all the projects and stuff that are building on Cardano. You could also go to Catalyst, which is the innovation engine in Cardano, and have a look at the grants and what people are proposing there. And I can, my DMs are open, so I'm at Ben O'Hanlon on Twitter, BENOHANLON. You can just DM me a question. I'm happy to give you a better answer. And Rich, I've just been probably a bit jet lagged, and I'm in the middle of writing OKR and stuff. So if my answers aren't, as good as they could be, then I apologize.
No, your answers have been great, really, really great. It's always great to talk to you. And the sense that I get is that there's a hell of a lot going on with Cardano, which also almost makes it incredibly difficult to explain and condense. Like if someone were to ask me, well, what's going on in London? Do I begin? And they could be the same. What's going on in Tokyo or Nairobi? No, there's a lot going on.
Well, governance is going on. People are getting funded, but it's not just governance. There's, people are building too. Cardano is full of builders, and that's what I'm really thinking about is utilization metrics and those different layers that we talked about, because it's a question of what's going on in each layer, right? What's going on at the network protocol layer. Okay, well, the validators and the block producers in Japan are running that network, and there are upgrades that are coming to it, and it's very lively as well. The upgrades happen quickly, like hard forks, and we have the hard fork combinator too, so there's no disruption. But then you're like, well, what's going on the governance and treasury coordination layer? Oh, okay, well, there are these proposals that have been submitted, and people are asking for this much money for this, or for research, or for Cardano Sovereign Wealth Fund. But then if you're talking about infrastructure layer, which is like the supply side of demand, then you're talking about scaling tech, right? Like Hydra or Mithril or Blockfrost or Midgard. But you might not be. You might be like, oh, actually, I don't need the info. I want to build on it. I want to build a DApp, or I want to build a DeFi project. So then you're talking about the build of application layer, right? Or you could be talking about like what's happening in liquidity, like what's happening with stable coins and this kind of stuff. So I think there's like a lot of different parts of an ecosystem that need to work together, like we talked about, this interdependence. And that's the challenge. It's like if you've got a specific skill set or a specific interest, I can do a better job of guiding you. But to give you the full zoomed out picture, I actually have got a map that I did. I don't know if I ever sent you that. Did I ever send you that ecosystem map?
No, but I can see the ecosystem map, and for people who are watching, cardanocube.com.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. But then, we are talking about a successful project starting in 2016 that's still around 9 years later and growing and growing and growing and financially viable and decentralized, which is what makes it really extraordinary. Okay.
Yeah.
Any last words, anything else you want to say, Ben, before we finish up?
No, just hope, we want to build a better future, and, we've all got kids, or you and I have got kids, and it's about the world that they're going to grow up in, and we won't be there. And I think that's, one of the things that is like on my mind the most. So yeah, yes. If anybody wants to learn more about Cardano, reach out, or, any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for what you said, because there's a pull in the non-blockchain world towards greater centralization, and greater centralization of power upwards, away from us as ordinary people. And then what Cardano and cryptocurrencies offer is the liberating forces of decentralization. That this will keep us free, because it can't be captured. It's difficult to capture decentralized entities. All right. Ben, thank you for everybody who's watching. I know this is a little bit shorter than we normally do, but Ben did say to me,
I have one thing to look up.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. You know what's really good? Look up Charles Hoskinson's video called "The 5 Pillars of the 21st Century." I often think of it as the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, because he talks about, there's really good ideas in there, but one of the things he talks about is how biosynthetics are coming, quantum computing is coming, blockchain and AI, and these 4 things combined have the risk of creating kind of like a real tyranny, like an emergent tyranny, the likes of which you could never think. So if I can change the cells in your arm, and I have an AI and quantum computing, I can think faster, and the blockchain is going to prevent you being able to attack that ledger. So with all tech, there's a tension between whether it's going to create more freedom, like you're describing, or whether it's going to be used for control, And I think that's kind of the fight or the battle that we're in. So that would be my suggestion, to go and watch that 5 Pillars of the 20th Century on Charles Hoskinson's YouTube video channel. Great. It's a really good video.
Great. 5 Pillars of the 21st Century. Charles Hoskinson YouTube channel. Thank you so much. And everybody, please do follow Ben O'Hanlon on X. I'll have a link to that when this goes out on my channels, and also follow the coinrepublic.com. Just let you know, there's another X Space this Saturday. I normally do these on Saturdays at 5 p.m. UK time, and this Saturday it'll be with a top privacy crypto, not well known, but they claim to be more private and more secure than Pirate Chain. I'm going to be speaking to one of the team from Epic Cash. So please follow, subscribe, and listen to that. And thank you to the Coin Republic, and thank you once again to Ben O'Hanlon from Cardano. This is Crypto Rich signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.